you're going to get to where you like desire or where you think you're going, but to pay more attention to the little moments, the people around you, your village. As I think when I was first, beginning and starting out, I really wanted to be successful in illustration, and it was something that was like really exciting and fun for me. I believed that God had sent me on this path to do it, and I needed to do it. Now it's been, almost 10 years. I just learned that like if God set you on the path for it, and He's gonna do it, and like all of your might, all of your strength, all of the things that you put into it, like while it's good to be a hard worker, it is good to make sure that you're going for the things that He has for you. Like there's a balance that needs to be done, and like I didn't really have that balance for a long time. I overworked myself. I had burnout many times because I was just trying to push for this thing. Um, and one thing that I get to do now is I get to have space. I make sure it's a priority for me to have space in my life, to have margin in my life, to not overlook my family, to communicate better. All of these things I really wish I would have done or known to do in the beginning, because I think it would have made my work even more fulfilling in the moment, in the present.
Hey, this is Melarie Odelusi, and you're listening to the Rough Concept Podcast. Yeah, so we're here for those who are listening that don't know who you are, or this is their first time hearing about and from you. Just share a little bit about yourself, about your journey, and why I love you so much.
Yeah, so I'm Jena Holliday. I am a full-time illustrator. I'm also an author. I illustrated and authored my first children's book, Spoonful of Faith, last year, 2021. Or wait, 2022. 2022.
Oh, they running together.
Right. I'm like, what year are we in? But I run a company called Spoonful of Faith. It's my illustration and design company. Within that, I do illustrations for books and publishing. Sorry. I also run my own online shop and work with small business owners on illustration projects. And then I also license my artwork and sell my artwork on products that are sold at retail stores across the nation. So that's a little bit about my work, about my like physical business, but the art that I create centers women, Black women, women of color, in a joyful, whimsical, restful imagery. And that's really important for me. And that is weaved with encouraging, uplifting words of encouragement, many of them based on my faith and scriptural reference. So that's a little bit about my work and what I do. I'm from Minneapolis. I'm not really from Minneapolis. I mean, I'm from Minneapolis, but I'm like 20 minutes north of Minneapolis now. I'm a wife. I've been married for 10 years. I have 2 kids, a 7-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son. So,
oh man,
I know.
Yeah, they are the same ages as me and Kai.
Yeah. So that's a little blurb about me. Yeah.
Awesome. So, the Rough Concept podcast is about, just sharing our creative process, the ins and outs, what it all means to us, and just about the way that you explained how you like to capture women of color, Black women, in a space, in a space or a state of rest in all the things. What was there a moment or an experience you can recall that prompted you to go about your artwork in that way? Like, give us the tea.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's like an exact moment that this happened, but I think it's always kind of been ruminating in me because I think I just never really saw a lot of representation of myself or like of women that I knew or like that really felt like it connected to me.
Mhm.
And like growing up and just in media and like, what I saw like on television or found in books didn't really represent me. And even if
Mhm.
I did see minimal representation of Black women or women of color, it's still, there were so many different facets to who we are. And so,
Right.
like, as the middle child of seven, I have four sisters. So I grew up seeing so many representations of, my parents basically put together in a child, right? And then also so many representations of Black woman. And so I just started to draw, and a lot of things that I drew were women, and I didn't um, think anything of it. But as I look back, I see that the women I drew were the women I saw in my life, the women that represented the women I loved. And it was
Mhm.
also what I wanted to be shown forth of Black women and women of color. And so I don't think there was anything that like sparked it initially, but it's always easier to look back and kind of see like, oh, that's what I was doing all those
Right.
years.
Yeah.
Um,
I kind of think of art as like journaling in a way, and you kind of go back to see your thoughts and feelings about a topic or, just something that you desire. You kind of notice that in your work.
yes.
And for me, when you talk about representation, yeah, it's a desire to see ourselves in many layers because Black women and women of color are way much more complex than the world
Hmm.
kind of has us seen on in media or in stories and things like that. So I think it's important for us to hold space in that, like, yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, I said, I'm drawing another woman. I said, I don't know what it is, but this is just going to be the topic of discussion as it pertains to my work for a minute, because I feel like our stories aren't shared. And even there are many layers to us as individuals. Like, there are many layers to Jena. Like, Jena is not one way all the time. And we can change and evolve whenever. And we
Mhm.
need to, be able to be seen in that same light. Like, yeah, I'm an artist. I'm also somebody's friend. I'm somebody's wife, mom, and I like different things. Some things I don't like anymore that or as much as I like something new that I discovered. So
Mhm.
it's just not painting us in this same image over and over. We have so many stories, so many layers, and we are so lit. Thank you. I
Oh,
love that you brought that up. Yes. So
go out on top.
I know. And I just think it's really cool, like that we create from that space because that is true still to us. Like the way you saw your sisters and your mom and your friends or whoever's in your life, in your even your own experiences, and showcase that. I think
Mhm.
that's the really cool thing about the creative process to me. So I think it's cool. Why don't you share your creative process with us, knowing that it doesn't look the same every time? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so yeah, like it looks different depending on what I'm doing, but for a traditional illustration, often I will get an inquiry from somebody or, someone that is an idea of what they are looking for, wanting my help with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then usually I ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions to kind of like get my grounding for like what, like I guess this is a example of I'm getting a business request, not if I'm just making it on my own. But I'll ask a lot of questions around like, what is this? What is the use? What is the goal? What am I trying
Mm-hmm.
to get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Or what are they trying to get out of this? And then I ask um, for any like inspiration. So I always like to start projects with like a visual inspiration or representation. So if you come to me and ask me to do artwork for you, I want to know which pieces of my work you like and like
Yeah.
resonate with you. Like why are you drawn to my work? Like what is important about it? And so I usually will gather all of that, right? Um and then all the like logistical details, right? Like how big it needs to be, and what if they're printing it out and all that stuff, so I can know what size and how do I make it.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to actually sitting down and making the work, I usually like to take the answers to what they said along with any inspiration and create like a mood board. I always like to create, even if it's something small, like I kind of want to have an idea of things that like really connect to this idea I'm trying to create.
Right.
And so I'll gather or create my own mood board. The bigger the project, the more time I spend on the mood board. And then from there, I will go into sketching. Um, Usually, one of two things can happen. I can, one, not really know what I want to create and make
Mhm.
like multiple like layout sketches of like
Yeah.
what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
Or usually, coming from like the mood board phase, I have a really good idea of what I want to start making.
Hmm.
And so then I will sketch up the idea and go from sketch to color. And in between this process, I'm talking to the client. So like usually I would send them my sketch so they can kind of see where I'm going with it, make sure I'm going in the right direction. If there's any changes, let's make them. And then I would go back, make any adjustments, go into laying down the color for the illustration, and
Hmm.
then I would do all the line work and like detail stuff at the very end. And this is like from a digital illustration, so a lot of the editing stuff is kind of done during the process of it. But
Yeah.
once I get to like the final color art, then I would share that. So yeah, it's like usually like a vision board or like a gathering of information, envisioning the project, doing a sketch,
Hmm.
getting to color, and then finalizing it. And color can take, I mean, it depends. If there's like a palette I'm working with, then it
Yeah.
can be a lot easier. But if it's up to me, it's kind of like sometimes I'll get stuck in color for a while because, like, color can bring a different feel, a different
Yeah.
vibe to the work. And so it's like you might have to play, I have to play there a lot. And so that can take me a little bit longer. Or sometimes I get stuck where I like two or three of something, but I don't want to send like too many ideas to the client because that can get you in a problem right there. And
Yeah.
so I have to kind of sit and decide and like edit and decide what I'm going to send. And so that's kind of, and then yeah, I send it off. And when it is digital, the client can, depending on what changes they're making, they might, if they need to make changes to the color, they will. Usually there's not too many changes that round, but if it's digital, it's a lot easier. So that is pretty standard process for illustration, digital illustration.
What about when you create for yourself? Like
Yeah.
when it's
So
something that you just create for yourself and like for yourself.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if I'm creating for myself, the process I would say is similar, but it starts at a different place. So like usually it'll start from like journaling or maybe something that I'm meditating on or like a thought that I can't kick or like a scripture that's just staying with me, teaching me lots of things or a word or something like that. Maybe I'm um feeling inspired by like the season, right? Of like, oh, it's spring or it's summer, and I'm feeling inspired to like make something during that time. And
Yeah.
so I will usually gather inspiration. So I kind of start out the same way, gathering like information, inspiration, whether that's just through my life, like through my own photos, my own walk, excuse me, my own walks, things that are, going on in my life,
Yeah.
or I'll go gather inspiration on like just things that I'm seeing on social media or Pinterest. I like to collect things. So I'm always making like boards. I'm always making like a list of things that I like. I
Yeah.
just I'm always gathering. That never turns off with me. I'm always saving something or like for
Too.
later. So then when it comes to time to like create, I have so many things to like pull from and I can kind of decide what direction I want to go to.
Yeah.
And then from there, I usually will sketch out ideas. So I always start with a sketch. And sometimes it just doesn't turn out how you want it to. Like
Yeah.
the idea in my head is this thing, and then I'm trying to make it, and it's not doing what it needs to do. And so either I'll scrap it and like start over, or I'll keep going. Like, you know, you have a choice. You can keep
Yeah.
going, or you can like
Or
stop.
continue to procreate.
Right? Sometimes though, like if I keep going, sometimes I just have to stop and like be like, I'm gonna come back to this
Step
tomorrow,
away from it.
because
Yeah.
your ideas will be so different the next day. And
Yeah.
so I would say like the actual logistics of doing the illustration is the same, but like where I gather the inspiration and how I began it is
Mhm.
different. And then when it's something I make for myself, I take more time with it, unless it's just like an idea that's just dropped. If it's an idea that's like, make this right now, I can just get it done.
Right.
But if
Yep.
it's like something that I'm like been ruminating on, I want it like to be a certain way, it's not coming out, I can take my time with it and I can come back to it and I don't have to rush it. And so the
Yeah.
process is so much longer. So yeah, there's some big differences between like working or doing it for someone and then like just creating for the sake of creating.
Yeah, it's so different. I feel like too, I love those moments when I get inspired by something and I finish an illustration within like an hour or so or in
Yes.
one day. And you know it's like cleansing in a way. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever
Mhm.
feeling that is, like you're unleashing it. It's kind of again like journaling, like you putting it out on paper and it just feels good when you're done. I just feel lighter. I
Yeah.
was just telling Kevin this yesterday. I said, one thing I need to make sure that I do every day, I need to make sure that I work out and I need to make sure that I create. And I was like, those two things are really important. So, obviously, all the other things in life will be a part of that, like devotion and all of that.
Right.
But I was like, man, those two things, like I need to make sure that I'm adding it to my list as if it's like brushing my teeth. Like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is
Like
something
it's a
you do
priority.
every day, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But when you brought up being in the zone or like just kind of like low key out of body when you can just think of something and be really like prompted and driven by that inspiration and get it done. And it's like you're so proud of it. I love
Mhm.
those moments. They don't come all the time. But when they do, I'm like, everybody out. Or I'm just like,
Yeah, like you have to
let me
run. You
catch
feel like
you. Yeah. So, I love that. What would you say is your favorite part of the creative process?
probably the envisioning, like the mood boarding, because I am a vision, like I'm just a visionary person, so I like to see. So like the ideation, uh,
Mhm.
brainstorming, dreaming up the ideas of where I'm going is probably my favorite part of the process. And then like on a flip side, I would say like another thing that kind of relates to that, and that's probably why I like it a lot, is like
Mhm.
whenever I try like new mediums, like new things, like that's
Yeah.
always really fun because it's like new thoughts, new ideas, new brainstorming, new
Yeah.
vision. And I think that's why I really love that part of the process, like the beginning of it. There's
Mhm.
something like that sparks in the beginning of it. And
Yeah.
that's where all your like adrenaline is like, you know, like when you're starting it, right? Like,
Yeah, I feel like a kid again. You know how you just forget, like not that I forget,
Mhm.
but when the kids are like, "Oh, can I get lunch?" I'm like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
oh yeah, my bad, my bad. We're off schedule." Like you just get lost in it. That that
Yes.
is that is it. Like I know it's a lot of things that I've been wanting to dabble in. I think like ceramics and air dry clay has been something I'm
Mm.
like, oh, I just got a kit.
Yes.
No, I just got a kit and I really want to start. I really need to just do it because like when you start something new. Speaking of starting something new, that can, as exciting as it is, I think sometimes I go into it wanting to be an expert.
Yes.
And that kind of like holds me up. And I think just being curious and excited and giving yourself space to like kind of mess up a little bit and learn from
Mhm.
your mistakes and trial and error and everything kind of just gives you more space to enjoy it. And that's when the best work comes. But I love your pots.
Yeah.
I thought about you the other day.
Yeah, that was like
No, I
very,
speak for everybody when I say I love your pots because I know that was something that you wanted to just try, right?
yeah,
And everyone loved it. And I remember you had your project where you had to complete multiple pots, and you was like, "This is a lot of
75
time."
pots. Oh my God. Yes. I got hired after I did those pots. Somebody asked me if I would do 75 pots as an employee gift. And I was like, yeah. And then it just took over half of my summer. But
You was like, "Girl, I went into this and I really liked it. Now I have to complete the 75
right,
pots." But
that's
you
a
did
whole
it, and
other
they
lesson of me
so
saying
good.
they
Huh?
did, come out really well. But I was gonna say that's a whole other lesson of me saying no to things. But that's another lesson for another day.
That's a whole situation, a whole conversation itself.
But yeah, it started as just like this idea. I wanted to paint on some pots, and um, I was like, I saw people painting on pots and flowers and that kind of stuff, but I was like, I want to paint some girls on some pots, and so I just did it, and they were cute. And then
Yeah, they look so good.
um, I was like, I got to figure out how to I was just like, I'll just do a drop, one drop, and then one drop came two drops, and then two drops came three, and like I did like four drops. I'm like, and every time they would sell out, and it was cool, just because I do a lot of digital work, so it
Mhm.
helped me to like I needed something to like touch and make, and like
Yeah.
I was like in a place where I was like, I want to make something. I want to touch
Yeah.
it. I want to paint on it. And so it really fulfilled that like desire for that. And then, the people that like my work or whatever loved it. So it was a win-win. But them 75 pots, that was like, woo, that was a lot of work.
No, no. And like, especially, I was talking to someone else about this recently about doing things that we enjoy and then it turning into kind of like work. And it's
Yeah,
like, dang, I love to do this. But when it's like work wise, it's like, okay, you gotta
yeah,
kind of like tap into a different part when it's just for you versus when it's like for like a client or something. So,
yeah.
but yeah,
There's
I've
more
been through that for
freedom.
sure. Yeah.
Like there's more freedom when I'm doing it from it's in it. That's the cool thing about. That's why I think I will probably never close my small shop, no matter
Mhm.
like who I'm working with on other projects and things that okay, this goes into like a big store and there's
Mhm.
thousands of it.
Mhm.
Like there's something still exciting and fun and fresh about being able to make things that I like and not I want to
Yeah.
make. Nobody can
Yeah.
edit and nobody can tell me no. And there's like a freedom in that you just that and that's the thing that usually drives people to want to work with me because they see, oh well, but then when you start working it puts like constraints on
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
doing. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. Like there are many times I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna close my shop," and I was like, "I cannot do it because as much as like you know how many times I say I think I'm gonna close my
Oh,
shop, and I never close it for that reason because there's like so much freedom. I can like sketch something up or illustrate something and put it out there and I'm like, oh
mhm,
yay, you know what I'm saying? It's like more freedom. I don't feel like I'm, confined to a particular look or color palette.
mhm,
And it's a blessing too when you can get clients that are like aligned
yeah,
and to be in the headspace to create from what they want, like in
yeah,
the same headspace, with their theme or the message they want to get across. That is like unicorn.
yeah,
Um,
it is.
so, but yeah, I wanted to go back to wanting to get into something like a medium to feel and touch something and work with something versus digital.
Mhm.
Because I like we talk about being digital artists and also working in other mediums and how I feel like I have been very spoiled in terms of digital art sometimes that when I go to sketch, I'm double tapping my paper.
Yeah.
Like it's a real thing. And I realized too that I overwork things because if I do it on a paper, I'm like, I should have touched it. I should just left it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I gotta like go back and do what I did initially because I didn't like the way I changed it. That's a whole story. Where are you in that? Like, working with pots and different mediums and also working in digital art. How do you I feel like you have a healthy balance between the two. Like sometimes you do, digital art and things like that, but you also dabble in paint and, working with pots and everything like that. So, talk to us a little bit about how you go about that and when it sparked and how, you kind of navigate it. Yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I just taught a class for women on illustration, but I wanted to teach them a drawing. Okay, so I usually teach like watercolor class or like a painting class, but I was like, we're gonna draw because I'm an illustrator, so I should be teaching drawing classes. But I was like, but we're gonna do soft pastels. And like, I don't really work with soft pastels. It's been a long time since I did, but I was like, I'm gonna buy some and I'm just gonna work with them for like a while, and then I'll be there. I'll teach a beginner's class on just using them because it'll be so fresh to me again because it's been so long since I used them. So I sometimes will do risky things like that and be like, let's try it, like because I'm crazy. But I think whenever I feel that like urge to like make something, I'm like, okay, what am I gonna make? And so I think I've always been like a DIYer. I've always been someone who's like wanted to, do things in my house or around me that like I can do this myself.
Right.
And so I'm always looking for opportunities to do things myself. And that kind of helps lend when I want to switch from like digital to doing things by hand.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I just follow that spark of creativity. So like I was on the same like idea as you, as like, oh, I want to make my own pots. I want to do my own. But it was what was holding me back was that, okay, I need to take a class probably. And then I need to kind of, learn a little bit more before I can do it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how can I, customize a pot? Or like I made these trinket dishes. Like, how can I customize these so that it feels like something that I made, but I don't have to do the hard labor of like putting, like actually creating and making the pot. Like, it's not like I'm giving up on this dream. It's just like, how can I start now? And so I think I'm always thinking of ways that I can start now. Like, had I
Right.
not been about to teach that class, I probably wouldn't have started pastels, but it gave me like the burst of like, no, go and buy it. And then, you can make with it for a while and see if it's something you want to teach.
Mm-hmm.
So it like pushed me to actually go and do it. And, like, obviously I know there's so many of us that we go out and buy all these supplies and then we never open them or use them. So I know.
Girl,
So
I got so much in these drawers. It's ridiculous. I was like, you need to get it together, okay? And stuff.
So, like for me, creative challenges are very helpful. So, like, I try to challenge myself in some way to use the thing. So, when I wanted to do murals, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna draw digital murals on my pictures to kind of inspire me of like, what would I create? If somebody gave me a job tomorrow and told me to draw a mural, I don't even know what I'd make. So
Yeah.
I need to at least start like ideating on this thing. And so
Yeah.
when I did that, people started like, asking me, oh, would you actually do a mural if we paid you? I'm like, yeah, if you're okay with working with somebody that has no clue what they're doing and is learning. And so
Right.
I think like doing creative prompts and like challenging myself somewhat somehow in my head makes me feel like more motivated or inspired to do it. Um,
Yeah.
just kind of like how, when you did like the lime wash and stuff on your walls in your
Yeah.
studio,
Yeah.
like it can feel intimidating to be like, I've never done this before. And this is my room in my house. And what if I mess this up? But it's also like, okay, this is my chance to try something new. And knowing
Mhm.
that you wanted to put that up on the wall, or like paint the wall, like gave you the motivation to just do it. And if it didn't work, you could just paint over it. And so
Right.
I think those types of moments are like what keep me balanced and like working digitally, but then being able to like step away and do new things and new mediums. Yeah.
Yeah. Let yourself be a beginner.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
I think it's a bit of pride in me that I don't want to suck at something sometimes, that I don't try
Yeah.
it. I think that's what it is. But yeah, and then crazy enough, like this wall was during a time where I was like, "Ugh, I need something. I'm gonna get dirty. Like,
Yeah.
like I need to change the space up. And I always like dreamed and posted on Pinterest. Like I love Pinterest for that. And I was like, oh, I love that unfinished like paint look. And that's when I discovered lawn wash. I didn't know nothing about lawn wash. I just knew I thought it was something that was just like unattainable. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't do that, or I couldn't. It would cost a fortune to get that done. Maybe it's wallpaper. And I saw a video I think on Pinterest, which led me to the person to the company that made the paint. And I saw them do it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, bet, let's do it." And I think that unleashed like so much more out of me. Like, oh, I can really create the space that I want for myself. I can
Mm-hmm.
really like make my home into like the dream home in my Pinterest board or in my head.
Yeah.
So I think those are just opportunities when you allow yourself to be a beginner to unleash so many other parts of, the process of you, of your journey, and like what you can attain or have or do.
Yeah.
So yeah, this wall is much more than a lawn wash wall. It's my girl. I'm a she my girl. And that
Right.
yeah. So
You inspired me though to like, because I want to do a light wash in my house, but I don't. I think I want to do it on my fireplace, but I'm like trying to figure
Ooh,
out. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna
yeah.
do. But I didn't know about it until you did it, and so like you said, you just don't know like what can come out of just taking those chances, trying new things,
Mhm,
being a beginner.
mhm.
Um, and sometimes, when you're stuck in one medium, and sometimes it clouds your creativity.
Yeah.
If you keep working in that same medium, and you have to kind of get out of that space and go do something new, do
Yeah.
something different.
Yeah, that's so very true. Yeah, I think that's definitely a cap that I'm willing to unleash soon. But I think too, which is funny enough, that can happen in many with many other mediums that aren't like paints and sculpting
Hmm.
and like this podcast that I was new to. And I think it like opened up a lot of mental doors
Yeah,
and emotional and spiritual doors for me. And it's like this new thing that I, you know, follow through with, that I'm enjoying, that like I think I will continue to do. So it's cool. I think we need to give ourselves permission to try new things and to, kind of suck at it first. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Dang, I was about to say something. Uh oh my gosh. It was a good freaking question. Dang.
It's
Oh,
about
by the
me.
way, I do have your trinket here. It's on my desk.
Yay.
Um, but yeah. Well, I'll just let that be what it is. Cause I really had a really good question after you were talking about. I did want to mention too, like going back to what you were saying, working with clients, what I do enjoy about working with different clients, even though like there's, specific things that they want us to illustrate and talk about visually. I do
Mhm.
enjoy that. I know it was who was at Michael's. They would have me try so many different mediums, and I was just like, I know I tried pastels with Michael's, and I was like, I need to work with this for a little bit. But then I had a deadline, and I was like, dang. But coming out of that, coming to the other side of that, I was like, I'm actually appreciative that y'all had me do acrylics, gouache, pastels, markers. They had me doing it was like an acrylic marker. I taught a
Yes.
workshop with pastels. And I was like, do you really trust me?
No, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, they were like, yeah, we want you to try something new and share it and, teach us. And I was just like, what? So being challenged to kind of step out of digital art or what it is that I already do is really good. It's really good for me because I wouldn't necessarily like do it myself, do it on my own.
Mhm.
So what do you say like now is your most inspirational or like creativity sparking subject now or experience now? Oh, and I
Like,
remember my question. How much
okay.
time do we have, by the way?
I'm like, how much time do we have? What time did we start? It's 1:30.
We officially started at like 12:45.
Okay. You said 45 minutes. It's 1:24.
Yeah, but you're
So
good. Are
yeah,
you
I'm fine.
good?
Yeah, I have like 15 more minutes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That works. That works. That works. Okay.
You remembered your question,
I
right?
did. I wanted to learn. I wanted you to share your journey for your children's book.
Okay.
Yes.
So, like what part of the journey?
Illustrating, exploring like the topic you wanted to share, how you incorporated the story with your daughter, like how did that
Yeah, so I was actually approached to write a book. It wasn't something that I had already like been sitting on, but the idea was let's look at the name Spoonful of Faith and kind of like see what we can create out of it. And so I knew I wanted to have my children be in the book
right?
somehow. Like initially, I actually did try to make the book to incorporate like the whole family in it, but then I was like really pushed trying to like, like I was stretching it in a way where it's like you're just trying to add people in. It's not going to be relevant.
Right.
So just stuck with the mother and daughter, um, you know, kind of like story. And I, for so long, did a lot of mother illustrations when I
Mhm.
first like started sharing my work. So it felt really connected to like the beginning of my journey of illustrating and sharing illustrations. So we're like, what do we come up with a recipe or like some type of like it felt like it needed to connect to food somehow. And so
Right.
um the story is about a mom encouraging her daughter to have faith in her day as she starts a new day of school.
Hmm.
But the way that she encourages her is like walking her through a recipe of love and having faith and being brave. And so it's really cute. But then, like, children's book, writing children's books, like, there's only so much to say. Like, there's only so much you can say. And
Right.
like, the book was made, for a kid that's like 8 or younger. And so, we like the text is so important. There's only so many words you can use, and it's like really important. Initially, it wasn't a rhyming book. It wasn't until we went through a couple rounds of revisions that we were like, let's make it like kind of like rhyme.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, I would say the text was way harder than um, the illustration because illustration I was much more familiar with.
Hmm.
But on the other side of that, I had to do 32 like full page, full color, full bleed illustrations. So
Oh,
it was a lot of work. It took a very long time. And I was getting, and I had never gone through, like, I had worked with art directors and stuff on projects, but a lot of the illustration work that people will ask for, they're not asking for like 32 pages of artwork. They're asking for, like 1 to 5 pieces. If you get like a job that's like 10 pieces of work, that's a lot of work. And so,
yeah.
we're looking at 30 plus illustrations. And so, I'm working with the creative team and art director and all that. And, they're critiquing me on like, okay, her head is tilted kind of weird in this one. Like, let's move this. And oh, she needs to look upset here and she needs to look more upset, and
Yeah.
things that I just wasn't used to getting feedback on. That was
Mm,
like driving me nuts because I was just used to like working on a few pieces at a time, so I could sit there and spend all this time like
yeah.
pouring into this one piece. And here I was trying to get 30 some illustrations done in whatever time frame it was, and it
Mhm.
just felt like I felt like I was in revisions for so long. So I think that was different than what I expected. But once I turned in the final artwork, initially when I turned in like the artwork spreads, because I had to send over like, so first I had to send over sketches or examples of what I thought the character was going to look like, to kind of get some ideas or approval on that. And then I had to send over like color palettes and how I would see the book kind of
Yeah.
playing out. And,
Yeah.
initially they were like, yeah, this is too dark. It needs to be brighter. We need, and I'm like, "Ah, brighter than what,
Right.
I'm telling them in my head about everything. Like, come
Yeah.
on, like, this is what I
Yeah.
want to do, But they're coming from a perspective of like, we do kids books and,
Yeah.
when we print this, it's not going to be as bright as you think. And so, I'm trying to like trust their expertise, but also know that they picked me because they trust my work.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like a push and pull of both sides on that. And so you finally like nail down the color, and then, then I do all the artwork, and then
Yeah.
there's critiques of the artwork, and then we, finally get to the end. I turn in all the illustrations, because all the text, like the story is always done first. So the story was done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I turn in all the artwork, and I just remember such a heavy burden like coming off of me, like it's done. I don't
Yeah.
care. Like hopefully it worked out.
Yeah.
Like, like I don't want to see a book. I don't want to
Yeah.
see it. And the last part is the cover. So usually, that's they come back to you later, like, okay, it's time to do the cover work. How do you see it? And so that's the same process again. Doing the sketches and then doing the color and then kind of going back and forth. But you're only working on one piece. Now it's like one of the most important pieces, because that's the first thing
Right.
anybody's going to see. So
Right.
they want to really capture the idea of the book, but then you also want it to be like exciting or something that you want to grab, attention grabbing. And so that is a process in itself. But I just remember when I got done with all of it, I was just like, okay, it's done. And it was months until I saw, the finished
The
copy.
finished
And
product.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
it came out, it was just like, I had really disconnected myself from it, because it was like, it was a lot harder than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And so, when I got the book again, it was like exciting again. It was like fresh again. It was like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I got to look through all the pages, all the work. I felt like so accomplished, and like, I can't believe I did this. Like, I actually have a book. It's crazy. And so it was just a wild process. It was just wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful book too. And Emmy definitely stole both of my copies.
Yes,
So
I remember.
I was
She
like,
excelled.
okay, like she loves that book though. She loves it. And I
Yeah,
know that
yeah.
was a really huge moment in your career and it was beautifully done. Like
Thank
it's on
you.
outside looking in, I was like, oh girl, you nailed this. But you
Yeah.
opened the back and he was like, girl, it was a lot of work. But that was really cool to see you, have like put that book out and like now you're an author, not only an artist but an author, and I think that's dope. Like super
Yes.
cool. All right,
Thank
last question. What would you, if you could tell or encourage or inspire yourself when you started this journey, your creative journey, what would you say to Jena?
you. Think I would tell myself that like you're gonna get to where you like desire or where you think you're going, but to pay more attention to the little moments, the people around you, your village. As I think when I was first, beginning and starting out, I really wanted to be successful in illustration, and it was something that was like really exciting and fun for me. And I believed that God had sent me on this path to do it, and I needed to do it. I just needed to do it. Whatever I could do, I needed to do it. And you know, after now it's been, almost 10 years, 9 years, and I just learned that like God set you on the path for it, and He's gonna do it. And
Yeah.
like all of your might, all of your strength, all of the things that you put into it, like while it's good to be a hard worker, it is good to make sure that you're going for the things that He has for you. Like there's a balance that needs to be done, and like I didn't really have that balance for a long time. I overworked myself. I had burnout many times because I was just trying to push for this thing. And um, I would, and one thing that I get to do now is I get to have space. I make sure it's a priority for me to have space in my life, to have margin in my life,
Mm-hmm.
to not overlook my family, to communicate better. All of these things I really wish I would have done or known to do in the beginning,
Yeah.
because I think it would have made my work even more fulfilling in the moment, in the present.
Yeah.
Whereas, I can look back at so many things I've done, and I remember like some of the work. I'm like, oh, that was good, but I remember some of those times making that and not really being in the present of that moment, and just trying to get through the project or just trying to get through the time. Whereas now there's so much more intentionality in what I create
Mm-hmm.
because I'm present when I'm making it.
Yeah.
So there's it, like I would tell her to be present
Yeah.
and wherever you're at, be where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and like use that to help inspire, encourage your creativity. Don't try to like dismiss it and hope for the next thing,
Yeah.
but use what you have right now and use where you're at right now to be present and inspire what you create. So that's what I think, yeah, would be
That's a
helpful.
word. I always tell people whenever we had that conversation, you was like, God is well connected. Like I am
Right,
not out here trying to run myself ragged
right.
behind the things, that I see or wanna do, and so that's just a great reminder because it can get really that urgency, that sense of urgency, and like,
Yeah,
oh, these are all the things that I want to do and attain and like have, or the people I want to work with, the brands I want to work with, that we can just be looking at that thing and there's so much life happening in front of us. So I
yes.
think that's a great reminder to all of us, especially as like artists that are creating as their career, like to be present in all of your moments, your accomplishments, small or
Hmm.
large, whatever that looks like to you, to really just take it all in and bask in that. Than to be looking over it to try and get to the next thing. So that's a
Yes.
word as always, and I love it. So thank you again for coming here and sharing, your art, yourself, your work, and your journey with us, and let people know where to find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at A Spoonful of Faith. I'm also at Spoonful of Faith Studio on Instagram. And then otherwise, you can find me at spoonfuloffaith.com. It has links to everything, including my shop. So,
Woo! And check out that blog because it's lit. But thank you again, Jena, for being here. And I love you so much. And have a good rest of your
yay, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that today's discussion sparked your creativity and inspired you to embrace your unique journey. Don't forget to share your thoughts, stories, and creations with me. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a review, and let's continue to support and inspire one another on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep creating.